Once again, I'm going to welcome everyone to the probably the best meeting of the entire year with our AAUW CEO, Gloria Blackwell. I am the newly appointed president of the Oregon AAUW online branch. This meeting will be taken over and presented by our two program co-VPs, Bev Van Sitters and Pat Lehman.
It is today my honor and my pleasure to introduce our new AAUW National CEO and main representative to United Nations, Gloria Blackwell. If you look at the national website and under our leadership and see her extended biography, it just takes your breath away. So I'm not going to reiterate that whole thing, but I hope if you haven't read it that you will. You'll be as impressed as I was. Gloria, in my opinion, is the embodiment of our mission and values as AAUW. She has an impressive background. She's been a member since 2004, and she has been particularly involved with just about everything, but with the fellowships and grants program, with salary negotiations training, with pay equity initiatives, and she's worked with the National Science Foundation on the STEM initiatives. And most recently, she has been working on greater outreach to girls and women of color. And as Julia Brown, I believe, phrased it at one point, Gloria is the right person at the right time to lead our organization. So please welcome our speaker, Gloria Blackwell.
Thank you so much, Pat, and all of the participants. It's really a pleasure to be here with you and, to get an opportunity to have this smaller, intimate conversation with the members of AAUW that I do value. I am going to share my screen and get my presentation up so we can move forward. All right. So I know that one of the things that people want to know is who's Gloria Blackwell. Although I've been with AAUW for a long time and I've met many of you, that it's important that people learn a bit more about me that might be outside of the bio that you have seen that has been circulating, particularly in the past couple of months since I've been appointed CEO. And so, you should know that I am a mom of 3. I have 2 daughters and a son. My older children have both graduated from college. My son last year, my older daughter about 5 years ago, and my youngest daughter is a junior at the University of Maryland at College Park. She is majoring in environmental science, but she's also an incredible artist who could probably leave school now and make a living with her painting and drawing, but I'm trying to keep her on the track of environmental science. So she really is the embodiment of STEAM, combining science and art. And so, as Pat mentioned, I've been with AAUW for 17 years. If you look at my Twitter bio, it'll tell you that I'm a global gender equity and education advocate, that I'm a nature walker, a lover of history. I'm actually giving up Jeopardy to be here with you all this evening. That's a big deal. And also, I was a Peace Corps and volunteer in Africa, which really gave me my roots for gender work and also for global work. And that when I think of myself as a leader in the way that I lead, I consider myself to be a servant leader. And it was something that was embodied in me as an undergraduate. I attended Georgetown University, and I think the Jesuits and their teachings have stayed with me throughout my career. So I'm really about, not what can be done for me. It's about, how I can serve others and not how I'm waiting to be served. And so those are just a few things about me. As a leader at AAUW, I have traveled to so many AAUW states for state conventions, for branch meetings, for conferences, and I know that the number has topped over 35. So I'm looking forward to eventually, when we have the opportunity to get out again and meet each other face to face. That's definitely something that I miss. And so, this afternoon, I wanted to just talk a bit about my transition as CEO, give a few highlights from this past year, which was quite a busy and exciting year, even during the pandemic, and talk a bit about what's in store for 2022. So I've been asked more than a few times, how I felt when I was appointed CEO at AAUW, and so the picture to the right, that's kind of how I felt. Right, there was excitement and enthusiasm, and the picture that I'm not showing is probably the next picture, which was, what have I gotten myself into? Right, be careful what you pray for. And so the combination of excitement and a little bit of trepidation, I think, is a good combination that's keeping me on my toes. But in general, the level of excitement that's in that picture is a level of excitement that really has been with me throughout my tenure at AAUW, in the way that I have been able to grow and be engaged in so many different activities. So I'm hoping to keep that level of excitement and enthusiasm very, very high. So I really would like to talk a bit about these three things. When we talk about what it means to be a part of such a great organization and to have had so many diverse experiences, it's really come home for me because in the past few months, I've had a great opportunity to reconnect with people that I have not been engaged with in a long time, to be able to talk to members, to look at the AAUW staff in a new light, to be able to connect with new and old donors. And I think that in part, the energy that I have comes from the energy that I have and the support that I have received from so many people sharing their excitement about me taking on this role at AAUW. So for me, it really is a new chapter at AAUW. I've been spending quite a bit of time listening, learning, and connecting. One of the things that I decided I was not going to do was to step into the role as though I already knew everything, because look, I've been with AAUW for 17 years. Don't I know it all? And that I would also take the approach of someone who might actually be entering into AAUW for the first time, or maybe didn't know as much about it as obviously I know. But also looking at AAUW, with a very fresh lens. And so one of the things that we had to do, that I also had to do, and you can see there in the right-hand corner, is that there's been something hovering over us the entire time. It's the COVID-19 pandemic. And so stepping into an important role during a global crisis also had its impact on my ability to lead this organization. So I didn't want to take anything for granted, and I certainly did not want to assume that because I have been with AAUW and have a great deal of experience, that I know it all. And so I have certainly been listening, learning, and connecting. And that information is very helpful because it's helping me to formulate my thoughts and ideas and strategies around AAUW moving forward. Not making assumptions, I know is going to serve me well in the future. And the pandemic is important to note because it really has had an incredible impact on our ability to keep the mission of AAUW moving forward. I'm thrilled to say that we have actually been incredibly successful at it. Our mission of advocacy, education, and research has been moving forward, despite the many challenges that have been taking place, with you, our members, and obviously with the national staff at AAUW, as we are stepping in to our third year of working remotely. And so what we really did was we took stock of the situation and decided what was needed, how do we need to pivot in order to meet the needs of our audiences so that they could continue to grow and learn and connect. And that includes our members, donors, supporters, and all of our participants. The AAUW staff certainly rose to the challenge, but I must say that, for people who are working full time, for people who are dealing with the pandemic, for people who are dealing with their own internal personal challenges, who have school-aged children or who have toddlers, who like me have college students who did virtual college for over a year, it's really been a challenge. But I would be remiss in not really sharing the thanks that I have for the way that the AAUW team at the national office has stepped up during the pandemic. It's been really, really important. And so we continue to focus on the three priorities and pillars that we have set forth in the strategic plan of education and training, leadership, and economic security. And my goal has been to make sure that as we transition, that we do stay on track with the current goals that we have in our main categories, because that's really important. But we will be over the next few months, and in the previous few months, I have certainly been asking many of the questions that anyone would ask about where we are as an organization, about where do we want to go as an organization, and obviously is what we're doing currently going to get us there. But the good news is that our strategic plan, which we just updated about 18 months ago or so, is one that I had a role in crafting. And I can certainly admit that while there might indeed be a few tweaks that I would make to the strategic plan, that all in all, it has set us up for success, but we also know that it is a living document for sure. And that I have stepped up at a time when, despite the pandemic, we have definitely laid a very strong foundation for the organization based on many of the actions that the leadership team has been engaged in over the past few years. But that also, we need to make sure that we're remaining flexible, and also that we continue to look at the goals and keep revisiting them to make sure that as the world changes and as women's needs changes, that we are continuing to be responsive to what those needs actually are. So it's been listening, learning, and connecting, keeping those three pillars that we have set forth moving forward. And my focus has really been on making sure that we leverage the successes that we have had as an organization to continue to grow the impact and grow the audiences that we are intent on serving, which is really, really important. So the next item that I really wanted to talk about a bit were our highlights of this past year. We're certainly in a pandemic, but we definitely have been doing an incredible amount of work. You may have heard about the webinars that we started during the pandemic, in which we had over 30,000 registrants and nearly over 20 participants. But in the past 6 months alone, we've actually piloted 3 new programs, something that I think that certainly deserves a great deal of respect and applause for the national team. One of those programs was a result of our funding from the Coca-Cola Foundation, where we've been focusing on increasing our engagement with historically Black colleges and universities. So the AAUW MoneySmart was a program that I put forward in our last proposal in order to sort of feed off of the concerns that folks had around our AAUW WorkSmart training, where we wanted to give our participants a more well-rounded experience, not just about negotiating your salary, but what is it that will help people be successful economically throughout their lives. And so AAUW MoneySmart was piloted last fall. It's a 3-part series that was very well received. I think we trained about 1,600 or 1,700 participants, and we will be evaluating that program to see what the next steps are. The other program that we piloted in the summer was AAUW STEM Ed for Girls, which was a program focused on high school girls in grades 9 through 12, in which we also brought in their caregivers or their parents. To get them more interested and to provide information to continue to build the pipeline of girls in STEM. And a key component of STEM Ed for Girls were our AAUW Fellowships and Grants alumni who served as presenters and mentors for that program as well. And the third one was our Social Change Ambassador program, in which participants were able to earn a certificate. It was a 6-week program with a variety of topics and outside presenters and speakers, which also included our alumni, which gave individuals a credential, that will allow them. I saw many people posting it on LinkedIn, which was really, really good. And just testing new ideas in new ways to meet the needs of individuals who come to AAUW seeking opportunities to gain learning, to gain knowledge, and looking for information in order to bolster their careers. Other highlights obviously are our fellowships and grants. This past year, we awarded $5 million in fellowships and grants, which was the largest amount since I've been at AAUW, which is really, really important. And so we were able to help more women during the pandemic than we had ever been able to help before. We also started a program with funding from the Office of Angela Scott, which is a designer who sought AAUW's because she was interested in promoting a young woman who was seeking a graduate level education. And so Angela Scott, we've partnered with on other initiatives since she provided this funding for a partnership with our community action grants. We obviously are continuing our work with WorkSmart and StartSmart, and we have now reached over 180,000 participants. We also had our first National Conference of College Women Student Leaders, or NCWSL. So we had the first virtual NCWSL because, our campus that we typically utilize, University of Maryland at College Park, the students weren't on campus, and certainly they were not hosting events. But NCWSL 2021 was quite successful, and we had nearly 900 participants from not only across the country, but we were able to actually have individuals globally as well. And I think that says something for the work that we do virtually, is that it really does open it up to more participants. And I think what was mentioned earlier, the 140th anniversary celebration was certainly a highlight. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala really is an example of someone who benefited from AAUW's fellowships and grants. And if you participated in the event and you heard her incredible story, it was really a life-changing opportunity for her. And I think that we really should be proud that she took time out. She took time out to talk to me, during the UN climate conference, and was quite gracious in providing, the time and the opportunity, because she really wanted to share her story about AAUW and what it meant to her. The other highlight was AAUW's participation with the 100th anniversary of the Curie Institute and the awarding of the Nobel Prize. And so AAUW was actually, along with the Curie Institute and the French, it was held at the French Embassy, and it also honored the descendants of Dr. Curie. We were the only organization that was invited to participate in this event based on AAUW's role in fundraising for Dr. Curie's gram of radium. And so I had an opportunity to meet the descendants of Marie Curie, to be welcomed by the ambassador, and to meet the great-granddaughter of the woman who interviewed Marie Curie. and got that famous quote from her about what is it that she needed. And she said that she needed a gram of radium, but the cost was too expensive. And so, the role of AAUW, not only in fundraising, but also the role of AAUW in continuing to support women in STEM was something that was really important. And we were able to share that for over 50 years now that AAUW has been awarding a Marie Curie Fellowship, because we raised so much money that after her passing, the money was given to AAUW and is part of our endowed funds. And so that really put AAUW in front of folks who maybe didn't know about our history and the way in which AAUW has been a champion for gender equity, particularly in STEM, for over a century. One other highlight that we obviously did is we continue our advocacy work around equal pay. We continue with our 2-minute activists. As you can see, we sent over 68,000 letters to elected officials, and those are AAUW members, donors, supporters, everyone who cares about the mission of AAUW and understands that we need to make our voices heard to those that we have elected to represent us as well. In the picture on the bottom, that's Angela Scott, the CEO of the Office of Angela Scott, who participated in a 3-part series that we did focusing on women in New York City. On entry level, managerial level, and also women in leadership positions, to expand the conversation around not just training women in salary negotiation, but also looking at women's economic empowerment from a variety of different levels. Because one of the things that we are trying to continue to push is that AAUW really does have a 3-pronged approach to pay equity. It's not just about training women, it's about passing laws, and it's also about working with employers. We also released a new report on systemic racism in the pay gap in honor of Black Women's Equal Pay Day, as well as a report on Black women and student debt, just a few of the research opportunities that we put forth. And so, those are just a few. There are certainly many more. I encourage you to make sure that you read our newsletters and check out the AAUW website. But when we think about the future and leveraging AAUW's success, here are just a few of the opportunities that we have put forth. Next week, as a matter of fact, we will be launching our second report with the EOS Foundation located in Massachusetts, and we've been a partner with them in their Women's Power Gap initiative. And so the new report is about the pathway to the presidency in R1 institutions. And so we will be sharing the information, which is the second in a series of research reports around women in academia, which fits in obviously well with AAUW's ongoing role in supporting pathways for women in higher education. We also recently began a partnership with the Rochester Institute of Technology with funding from the National Science Foundation on a program working on faculty compensation. And the partners, along with RIT, are Gallaudet, Villanova, and Drexel. And so that's a 5-year program that we will be working on as co-principal investigators. We recently received additional funding for STEM Ed for Girls from both the Baxter Foundation, which is a new donor for AAUW, and the Arconic Foundation. And so that program will be expanding this summer. We're just started getting the word out about the NIC whistle for this summer, and we hope that you'll be supporting your college students to attend NIC whistle virtually. And this year, for the first time since 2018, we will be doing an expanded version of the simple truth about the gender pay gap, because as you know, it's really the not so simple truth, and it's becoming more and more complex, and we are looking at examining the data in new and different ways. We, as you probably saw in your inboxes, AAUW's art contest is now open, and you have until January 31st, so please submit your submissions if you're so inclined. Later on this year, we will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX. We are continuing to work with our coalition partners on with the administration on Build Back Better and promoting all of the initiatives in there that we know will make such a difference in the lives of working women and families. And so we will continue to be sending out efforts and messages to you to make sure that you are helping to promote it. And obviously, we want to build on the success of AAUW's 5-star program. I had the pleasure of meeting with over a dozen of the 5-star successful branches this past fall. And it really is a way to be engaged in the AAUW mission in a very intentional way. And so I really hope that folks will make sure that they check out the new program. I know that the membership team has made a few tweaks to it, but overall it really is a great way to be involved. And you will find that it is a way to also expand your membership base, expand your reach and your audience. I heard that from so many branches who had different opportunities that they decided that they could pursue through the 5-star program. So that's definitely something that you should check out. And so moving forward, I will continue listening, learning, and connecting with the goal, obviously, of ensuring that AAUW's mission moves forward. I think that AAUW's challenge, like most organizations, is that we continue to remain a relevant, strong organization, right? And that the issues that we care about are the ones that we will continue to address, and that we'll continue to address them, not only in the ways that we have addressed them all along through education, advocacy, and research, but that we will continue to pilot new opportunities and new programs so that we do continue to meet girls and women where they are. And that we continue to expand our audiences to ensure that AAUW is being an inclusive and diverse organization, and that we are continuing to focus our efforts and work on women who have been disproportionately impacted by unfair policies and practices. So I want but we had the largest matching gift, and we were able to meet that gift, and also just for the way in which everyone shows up for AAUW, in this challenging environment. We really do want for all AAUW members, our staff, donors and supporters to feel valued, to feel engaged in the work that we are doing, and to really feel a sense of belonging as well as a sense of pride in the work that AAUW does. AAUW is a unique organization. One of the things that I know you've heard over the past few years is that there's such a crowded field out there in the equity space. But I would hazard that AAUW continues to be unique, with a unique history, with a unique mission, and with a unique way that we are delivering that mission. That AAUW does stand apart from other organizations in so many ways, and that we're not just local, we're not just national, that AAUW does impact the world. And my goal is for us to continue to do so, and to continue to do so by leveraging our successes, by growing our audiences, and by meeting people where they are. And the only way that we can do that is with you, our members, with your skills, with your expertise, with your talents, and with your commitments. And so I do thank you for all that you do for AAUW. And I thank you for the outreach of support that I have received since being appointed the CEO of this amazing organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. We have some questions that the board have put together, and
All right.
those will be followed by questions that Bev will read from the chat
All right.
that you have that our membership has submitted. But one of the more personal questions before we get to the organizational questions, in your tenure with AAUW, what has been your most difficult moment, and in what moment is your greatest pride?
Such a good question. So I'll be honest and say that the most difficult moment is always when AAUW had to take a look at our finances and at the budget and make decisions that were painful. And those decisions, particularly around staffing or around no longer being able to engage in a program that we felt was really important, those are the difficult times when talented staff needed to be let go or when programs could no longer be funded. But the good times are ones that come for me on a regular basis. So it's very difficult, but I can put them in a category. And the category is those people who can say that AAUW has had an impact on their lives, and that they come with thanks for what AAUW has meant for them. So it could be at Nick Whistle when the young women come and they want to say thanks for the branches and states that have supported them. And they want to come and say thanks for getting information that they did not have access to before. And it also happens when we have a StartSmart conference and someone comes up and they talk about how life-changing it is, or in simple notes from our fellowships and grants alumni who say that without AAUW they would not have the career that they have and that their lives would be so different. And that's really something that AAUW as an organization should be incredibly proud of, because people can remember, just like Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, they can remember what that fellowship meant to them, whether it was 1978 or whether it was 1958. People remember when they got their AAUW fellowship, and that's an incredible honor that I think all AAUW members should be proud of.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question is, where do you see AAUW in 2027, that is 5 years from now?
Well, if I had a crystal ball about 2027 seems a long way off, right? It's only 5 years. But what I would like to see in 2027 is an AAUW that is still thriving and robust, that has a diverse and inclusive membership and audience that really caters to women at all stages of their careers, that we have built out a very strong alumni program with our fellowships and grants recipients, and that our advocacy and our research are at levels where AAUW, is making a very strong mark on decreasing the inequities for women. Ideally, in 2027, it would be great if AAUW was out of a job because gender parity had been received, but we know that that's achieved, but we know that's not probably going to happen, since apparently pay equity is not going to happen for another 116 years or something. But a strong organization with a diversified funding base that really is meeting all women where they are. I think that would be important, and that we just continue to leverage the ongoing successes that I know we will have in order to build and strengthen our organization.
Thank you. I'll just ask a couple more. I mean, I have a whole list of questions here, but I'm seeing that in the chat there are a lot of questions too. So I'll just ask a couple more. Here's one that I hear about a great deal as state co-president. When will the new and improved membership services database be online and available for use?
I'm sure I've heard that question a lot, as a matter of fact. And the new, I think we're calling it, is it like the membership hub. Yeah. Oh, the AAUW Community Hub is what it's going to be called, right? That's a great name, AAUW Community Hub. It will be available during the first quarter of 2022, so between now and March 30th. It is in the final testing stages now. I know that because the staff talks about it all the time. It has been a multi-year effort to get it up and running. But the staff and the consultants are really hard at work getting everything tested and getting it fired up for its launch. So I know it's been a long time coming, but it will fundamentally change the way that you all can engage with each other and we can engage with our data as well. So it will be a game changer for AAUW.
Great. Thank you. We're all really looking forward to that. I can tell you. And one more question, and that is, here's something that has been a real issue for Oregon currently. Who can give us advice, or who can give advice to someone at a local university or college on how to start a student AAUW club branch on campus? The website has not been very helpful.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Well, I'll be honest and say that the website is not very helpful because it's not something that at the national level is encouraged. So you may remember that for a number of years, there were resources on the website. And I remember this because it was just before I took over the programs team, as a matter of fact. And at that time, I do recall that AAUW was actively engaged in promoting student chapters. And part of it is that, it was decided after, I think, 3 years of being engaged in that discontinued in 2017. And I think that was in part due to the fact that there was a lack of student leadership. When someone graduated, everything would fall apart. It was about staff resources at the national level. And it's not that we don't think that students are important, or that they aren't an important pipeline for AAUW engagement. And so we won't be encouraging folks to start student chapters. We don't have the resources for that at the national level. And typically, when we say, if we want to start doing X, well, we'll have to give up Y because we don't have funding for it. The other piece is around, there's so many ways that students can be engaged through StartSmart, obviously through NICWSL. Student affiliates continue to get free membership when their campuses are members of AAUW. Otherwise, the cost for a student is still minimal at $18.81. And we encourage all of you, if you have connections with campuses, to encourage them to join and become members of AAUW.
Thank you. That's interesting because there has been a lot of interest in promoting that in the state of Oregon, in promoting student branches, but student clubs. But that's an interesting response. So thank you very much for clarifying that. I have a number of other questions, but I think it's only fair to open this up to our membership. Is it Bev or is it Georgia who's going to be asking?
I'm ready to do it. Okay, Gloria.
Thank you, Bev.
What I've done is I've pulled together 2 questions as one because the topic is open membership. So the question is, when will there be another campaign for open membership? And secondly, in what tangible, real ways have we missed receiving grants because we don't have open membership? And in what you gave, as you were talking about the institutions, my brain was going fast. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to pull it all together, but they hit me as being private college post-secondary institutions, which means they would have more discretionary funds than, those that might be state-run. So.
Let's see. So the question around open membership is one that I'm sure you saw that there is an additional meeting on tomorrow for membership with the board, with Julia and with Melinda Gall. And that's a question that they will be responding to because it really is the board that is making the statements around open membership and when it might happen and what the next steps are. So I will defer the response to that. That can be, either participate in that or, feel free to be engaged with your representative who is a part of the AAUW board. The second question around funding is an interesting question, because I think that one of the things that you probably are referring to is corporations or foundations who see AAUW as not being an inclusive organization, still being stuck in someone needing a degree to be worthy and that sort of thing. Now, as someone who is just now in the CEO seat, I personally was not privy to those conversations. I will say that the individuals that I have met with have been very open with AAUW. It's obviously we've received quite a bit of funding recently, just in the past few months, of people who are still willing to support the work that we do. And one of the ways that we have been demonstrating that AAUW is an organization that does care about all women, and that we're trying not to put parameters on who can and can't be engaged, is that the proof is in the audiences of the women that we are serving. And so when people come to us and they might say, this is a good example, they might say, well, if we take a look at your membership, it looks like you're an organization that doesn't have a wide reach, to a broad expanse of women. And so we look at the actual participants in our programs and we can demonstrate that AAUW doesn't leave anyone out. And that, you can't judge everything that we do by the representation of our membership. And so one of the things that I say is AAUW's membership needs to be looked at as an asset and not a hindrance, because part of what allows us to stand out, and part of what allows us to have been a pillar all of these years, are the members who are representing AAUW in so many communities, and who then have the reach within their communities to be able to do expansive programming. And so, I found, and you saw with Arconic, and with the Baxter Foundation, the grant that we just received working with NSF, and from EOS, they're coming to AAUW because of the strength of our work. And they're seeing AAUW's history and AAUW's membership really as an asset. And that's how I see it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that. We have one here, of course, dealing with the pandemic. How has the pandemic, do we have any statistics on that, has affected AAUW's membership retention over the past 2 years?
AAUW, as you probably know, the decrease in membership has certainly been in part due to the normal attrition that takes place with the organization. And so it has not been, I would say, inordinately affected. We have seen member numbers drop. Part of that is obviously due to the fact that the demographics of our membership are such that we do have a number of deaths on a regular basis. We did see in some cases, particularly around campuses, our college and university partners, due to the fact that campuses were remote, people were not getting mail, people were not in their offices, the chain of communication and command and getting things signed was disrupted. So, there was a decrease, but we have found that those numbers, particularly our CU partners, that those numbers are going up, which has been really great. And we won't have the new numbers around membership. We'll be getting those in the next few months. But there was a drop off, and I think that was certainly to be expected, and that was normal, but we're doing what we can in order to bring those numbers back up.
Okay, and I'm going to try to combine a couple questions here. One is, what unique contribution does AAUW make compared with other women's organizations? How do we stand out? But along with that was one down here. Are we doing anything to help get the ERA? I think the word should be ratified.
Okay. So AAUW stands out because, I mean, not just because of our fellowships, which are outstanding, unique, and no one can come close to the level of funding and history and reach that AAUW has, not just nationally, but globally, and the number of women that we have impacted. The other part is obviously with our strong membership base. I participate in, AAW is a member of a number of coalitions. We participate in partner meetings. I'm a member of the Women Leaders Group that meets on a regular basis. And what separates us is that, a lot of organizations they just don't have a branch or a person or a member, in every congressional district. They don't have public policy work that's taking place at the state level. They're not getting regular training. And those are really because people come to AAUW because of the reach that we have. Or when they want to, for example, we recently were working on a letter for other organizations to sign on to get President Biden to do the student loan debt forgiveness, that AAUW, because of our work on deeper in debt, came to AAUW, and we were one of the leaders in drafting that letter as well. And so that really does make us unique as an organization, and it's why people want us as part of their coalition. As far as the ERA is concerned, I know that later this month there will be the anniversary, I think it was, of the ratification in Virginia, I believe. And so, if you go to the website, you'll see that AAUW certainly is a part of some of the work that's being done, but it's not a prominent advocacy effort of what the advocacy team is working on right now. It's certainly there's support there, but also when we look at where we are now in terms of the pandemic and what needs to happen to impact women's lives immediately, we are focusing on Build Back Better. And we are focusing on those issues that are going to really have a direct impact in helping to alleviate so many of the challenges that have come forth during the pandemic.
Okay, and then two program questions I'm going to put into one. One
Okay.
is dealing with a version of, has there been developed a version of StartSmart for community college students? And the second question was dealing with Nick Whistle for 2022. Virtual, is that a possibility?
Okay, I'll start with Nick Whistle first. Nick Whistle 2022, the decision has been made. It will be virtual. And we will be launching the registration by the end of the month. I think it's slated to go up sometime around February 1st. The decision had to be made in partnership with the University of Maryland at College Park. We made that decision late last year, although we already knew that was just going to have to happen to do it virtually. And in part, obviously, it's because of the pandemic, and it's because of capacity issues as well. If we took the chance and said we could have Nick Whistle in person, due to social distancing and many other efforts, the number of participants would have to be quite small, or we would have to focus on having a hybrid event, which would require many more staff and many more resources, which we just don't have. And last year's conference was incredibly successful, and we had a reach that we would not normally have had. Circling back to the other question, which just left my brain.
Okay.
Programming.
Right,
StartSmart.
programming,
Okay.
community college.
So we do a fair number of StartSmart partnerships and contracts with community colleges. community colleges have been a part of StartSmart. As a matter of fact, we just launched late last year a partnership in Northern Nevada where we are delivering StartSmart to about, I think it's like 5 community colleges. So if people want to be engaged with community colleges and encourage them to participate in StartSmart, they're certainly able to do that. That's encouraged. It's not just 4-year institutions, because the needs of students, particularly because so many community college students are also working professionals as well as parents, they would certainly benefit from the skills and the training that they can get through StartSmart and WorkSmart. Good question.
Great. And the last one from the chat, and probably wanted to just really spend some time on this one, and I love to save it for last here. What surprised you most as you looked at AAUW from your new vantage point?
It's a very good question. I can go back to something that I said earlier. When you are, so I've had a number of different roles at AAUW. Like sometimes I sat, in the back seat of the car. Sometimes I sat in the passenger seat next to the driver. And now I'm actually sitting in the driver's seat, right? And so in each of those seats, the vantage point is very different. And in working very closely with this, particularly the previous CEO, you get a sense also that things just kind of work themselves out. There are challenges. I see it from the staff viewpoint. My team is happy, everything's good. But when you really delve deeply into the complexity of an organization like AAUW, it really is like going back to school in order to truly understand the complexity of AAUW and its internal workings. Because although I was managing half the building, there was a whole nother side that I engaged with, but being intimately involved in it has been very rewarding, because now I actually have the full picture of the organization, and that is really helping me to make informed decisions. And it also is important that I didn't step into the position assuming that I knew everything, right? Because I didn't. And continuing to learn and grow is really, really important, and continuing to listen is vitally important to make sure that I have all of the information that I need, and also that I'm building a strong team that can support all of the efforts that we are working to achieve at AAUW.
Thank you, Gloria, and I'll give it back to Pat now.
Thank you, Gloria. You are so inspiring. I just want to ask one more question very quickly before we finish. What should we know about you and or AAUW that we haven't asked?
Oh, well, Pat, you've asked a lot. You've really asked a lot, but I'll give you. I'll give you. I will say that I come to AAUW in 2022 with the same level of enthusiasm and energy and admiration that I came to AAUW with in 2004. Now, I may have a little more gray hair than I had in 2004, but my level of enthusiasm and deep respect has not waned. And one of the things that has kept me at AAUW is that deep respect and admiration that I do have for the mission of AAUW, for the hard work of AAUW members, for the stories that fellows tell about what this organization has meant to them, and for every day the tangible work that I see being done to to really pull down the barriers that keep girls and women from succeeding. And so I'm someone who took on the challenge when some people said to me, well, why in the world would you want to step up and run that organization during a pandemic? Okay. And while some people might say, be careful what you pray for, I say thank you. thank you for the opportunity to really step up and to really lead AAUW. I am someone who really is proud to be a part of AAUW. I do try to sleep, although I definitely am always wanting to be engaged and learn more and get more people engaged in AAUW. And I think also I really see AAUW as continuing to serve a pivotal role in the women's community, and I want to make sure that I do all that I can in working with members and staff and our leaders in making that happen. And I guess the only other thing that you should know about me is that I have a great sense of humor. So the team will tell you that I can make you laugh at just about any moment when you're feeling down. So I want people to experience a little joy even as we're doing hard work. So that's important as well. You know, someone asked where was I a Peace Corps volunteer? In Cameroon, in West Africa. Yes. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Gloria. This has been an absolutely wonderful, educational, informational, and inspirational hour. And you are, as Julia said, the right person at the right time. We are absolutely convinced. And I personally feel that you are going to lead us into the best place AAUW could possibly be during these times. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today. This has been just a real privilege for all of us.